Alright guys, now it's time to talk about some cabling. I need to get some cabling done inside of the system. I started some of the basic front panel connections and stuff, but now what I need to do is move towards getting some of this lighting installed and get it wired up. So let me take you through what we've got coming through here. Let's see here. So I have just about everything I need to install the lighting related cables. So first off, I showed you this in the previous video, the LSB01 8-port RGB light strip control box, and I have now two of them, and basically these are going to split the lighting. So each one of these controllers will allow me to run up to 8 different extensions off of it, and then those extensions could have extensions. So but the bottom line is the plan here is to have all of the fans on the radiators, and I also got one more fan here for the rear of the case. I traditionally don't usually put a fan in the main compartment. I don't like for the dust, but I'm going to change this fan so it's got positive pressure. It'll actually be the only fan. It'll be blown in from the rear into the case to keep the VRMs cool because they're not water cooled. So there'll be some air blowing in that general direction. So again, so the 8 fans that are on the radiators plus the plus this fan are going to be controlled off of one of the LSB01 8-port RGBs, and then the other one I'm going to use to control the cable strips. So I have here cable mod. This is a 60 centimeter LED RGB, and I have a second one that's going to be here later today. So one of these is going to go either in the underside of the top and one on the bottom, or one in the back side and one in the front side. I'm not sure, whichever way the lighting looks better. So that is where I'm going to have 2 of these going. So those 2 will be controlled off of a RGB, the other RGB controller. Now I also had bought a addressable LED, and so here I have a cable mod 60 millimeter addressable LED strip. Now when I first bought these, I planned it a couple of months ago when I started planning the build, and I bought it off of Amazon, and I didn't know whether or not it would work, but it does have the Aurora Sync logo on there. So I bought it, and when I first looked to test it, it has a 3-pin connection, so it's different than the standard 4-pin that you have with these other LEDs. But after researching it and checking, there is an adapter cable that you need to use that will go from a 4-pin to the 3-pin, and it does connect to the addressable header on the Asus motherboard. So originally I didn't think this was going to work, but it in fact does work, and so I'm going to have that connected to the addressable. In addition to these cable mods LEDs, which do work, and I've tested it already, they do work with the at least the Silverstone controller. All right, so that is for main lighting that we have there now. Now what I do also need is I have a bunch of these extensions. So these are RGB extension cables. I've got a bunch of single ones, and then I have a couple of sets here. These are more single RGB extension cables, and then the really cool ones that I have here, I don't know that I showed you before, I've got 2 of these, and these are for connecting the 4 RGB connections from the fans going into the one which will go into the controller. So I've got 2 of those, and they also have the little pins. Plus I bought a shitload of these too, since they don't, some of these cables don't come with them, and the LSB01 controller doesn't come with any of these. They have the proprietary connection. So in order to make it work, I had to you know, I stocked up on all of these here. So I have those going for me now. All right, and then what I have here is, let me show you next, I have some LEDs that are going to go also into this case. All right, so we have, coming off of the acrylic block, I have one 3mm white LED there and one on the other side. And then here in the top I have, right in the back in the middle, you may not be able to see it, but there is a spot back there in both of these where I have a 3mm white LED, dark side, or that should be plugged in there. No, looks like this one came loose when I was messing with the cable. So, oh, you get to see me install this. Let's see if I get it focused right. Hopefully, I don't have to put. I may have to put some glue. That one is in. So there's one up there and one on the top there. So I'm going to have to. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the motherboard CPU block, I have dark side 2 cables going into the block. So you can just about, you might be able to see it right there. So I have 2 LEDs feeding the top of that block. So that's 6 LEDs, 3mm LEDs. They're not RGB LEDs. I wish somebody made, you know, one. I looked hard. I found a 4-pin 3mm LED, but you'd have to, you know, make your own cables. And so right now I'm not going to do that. I did find some 5mm ones, but that's not going to work in this build. Alright, so that is, those are additional lighting. And then I'll take you around the back side. So right here we have those 2 LEDs from the CPU block coming out into a 3-pin. So this is a adapter cable from made by Darkside. So that I have that there. And then I have the 2 coming off of the top of the reservoirs, the acrylic blocks there. Then I have 2 more of those 2-pin connectors coming off of the bottom of the acrylic pump top portion of the reservoirs. So that's 2, 4, 5, 6, my 6 LEDs. And then the other thing that I was hoping to do is, these are the controllers that came with the Power GPU blocks. I was hoping to be able to control them as well using the LSB01 and the motherboard. And I tested one of these blocks, one of these LEDs. I did not use this controller. I removed it and connected the 4-pin up, and it didn't work. This controller allows you to set a mode, allows you to change the colors, RGB, again, the gamut of colors, and then there's a speed to cycle and breathe and that kind of thing. But I'm not going to be touching these things. The idea was to use the Aura Sync to control all of my lighting in my system. Well, that's not going to be possible with the Power block, so I'm going to have to put power connectors to these. The nice thing, at least, though, is once you set a mode using this controller, even if you remove power from it, it keeps that mode in the on the block. So I'm going to set them to white. So they'll be white. All these other LEDs, they're white. So that'll be kind of understated, but that should be good. And let's see. So yeah, now you see kind of a mess back here. I haven't done any cable management yet. So in addition to, once I line up all of the RGB cables and where I'm going to place them, then I'm going to start tidying some of this stuff up. You see the controller has power cable, and it has the 2 fan cables. It also has some, I have a thermal probe for the CPU block, the GPU block. One's going to be the case, and I'm going to add one for ambient. So it'll be poking out the case somewhere. And you see I have some power. This red cable, red and black, is the power to the hard drives and the SSD cage. And then I have to power up the 2 pumps. So I got to connect those together and dress those. I did not put in the GPU power cable or the motherboard power cables yet. I'm going to put those in last. So then I need to get all this cabling done. You see in the basement there's RGB for the fans I've got to do, and I've got those right up here as well. So got to deal with all of that. So I'm going to work on that now. This is power to the PCI Express coming off of the motherboard, so that's the additional power connector. This is the extended audio cable going to the front panel. And then this is the 2 USB 3.1 or 3.0 cables. One's here and the other one goes in right here. Then I have all the SATA cables right here. There's 2 going to the hard drives, 4 going to the SSD cage. So yeah, I've got some cabling to do and some dressing up, which I'm going to get started on now. While we have the spotlight down on here, all these other cables, I have a ton of extension cables. So here I have, so this is a little 3-pin fan extension with a 3-pin plug. Then I've got some extension Molex. I have a Y, a splitter, so to go from 2 Molex to 1 to the power supply cable, which I'll probably put the pumps on this. I also have some other splitters for running, you know, if I wanted fans. But I use a lot of dark side, so the LEDs that I have in the case are dark side cables, and they're great, very nicely sleeved cables, and they have these connectors for them that have the 2 pins, and they take it to a 3-pin. So I think I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 RGB. Not RGB. I wish they had RGB LEDs for 3mm. They don't have them. I can't find them yet. But for all of the white 3mm LEDs, I'm going to be connecting them up to these, and then I can plug them into a 3-pin, right? Or I can use the 2 pins, and then I have one of these Mod My Toys PCBs that allows me to plug in, you know, 3-pin or 2-pin power, and then I have it powered by a Molex power cord from the power supply. So that is what I'm going to be using. One of these I should only need to connect up all of the 3mm LEDs that I have back there. And then of course the different power cables will allow me to connect up the RGB power connectors from the graphics blocks, and then power from the power supply for the pumps. And so I have plenty. I have tons of other cables too, adapters. So that's what I'm going to work on next. I'm going to start dressing some of these up and installing these, and then I'll take you for a look around once I get that done. Alright guys, here's some of the interim cable management. The hard drives and the SSDs that I have in there, they're just test sample ones just to get my cabling right. They're not the main ones that are going to go in there. I have to take them out of my main system. But I've got pretty much all of the cabling done. I've got the Aquaro cabled up with the with 3 fan connections. You know, both the top radiator, bottom radiator, and the rear fan, the temp sense, power. I have all of that running down to the basement, really, and that's where most of the connections are being made. The red and black cabling is from my previous build, but you're not going to see those. Those power the hard drives and the SSDs. You can see I have the 2 LSB01 Silverstone RGB switches in there, and I have them all cabled up. I've got front I/O coming across there, also some LED lights. Yeah, the middle section there, some of the nice black sleeving is the MDPC sleeving that I did for the SSD data cables. There is that black and silver. It's just a test cable. That's one of those extensions. I'm just testing that for looks on the front. That's not going to be the cable that stays there. And then in the basement there I have you know, again, mostly the red and black cable is for the Molex power to everything else. and the SATA power, and then I have some stock 1500i cables to use for PCI for right now. I don't have the custom cables. I have some custom cables on order. They're not here yet, so I want to fire up the system and test it. I have the RGB controllers right there, wired in for the bits power blocks, powered up. And so there is some space down there, a little crowded, but again, it's out of the way. And I got to put these cables in temporarily. So yeah, I mean, easily. There's the one beauty of this case is so much space back here. So you know, all the door's going to close just fine. And I've got everything done. I have another RGB cable extension that's coming, so I can run. This is from the rear case fan, RGB case fan, so I have to get that in there. Yeah, it looks still kind of, you know, it took me quite a while to go ahead and do it the way it is right now. I use a lot of 3M cable clips here. I've got a couple of ones that support tie wraps. You slide those through. And then I also used a lot of the these holes on the edges here of the case to tie and hold the cables that I have running on the inside. So that's what it looks like for cabling for now. And I'll dress it up some more when I finally get the final PCI Express and CPU motherboard cables. But this is enough to get it tested out, fired up for the first time. I do know the pumps and the loop over that is nice and working, as you saw. So, alright. Now the next thing I want to do is start cabling things up. And one of the things that I bought that I wanted to put in the system was one of these EVGA Power Links. Basically, these connect to your power connections on your graphics card, and it's set up to be able to do either dual 8 pins or an 8 pin and 6 pin. You can even do 2 6 pins, but you have to buy an optional thing. So this sits on the edge of your graphics card, and what you'll do then is, instead of connecting your power to the top of the graphics card, you plug it in near the bottom. So it helps keep more cable out of the way. And for this build, I currently have my red and black cables, custom cables, but they're really long, and you know, I want to try to keep this looking as clean as possible. So I'm thinking if these will work, that'll keep that big mass of red and black cables from protruding over the graphics cards, and let the RGB stuff do its job. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to see if I can get this to, if this will fit. So I'm not sure that this will fit up here on the edge of here. I think it will. So I'm going to give it a shot. But in order to do so, I first need to change out one of these connections. So one of these connections here for the 1080 Ti is a 6 pin. So the one on the outside is a 6 pin. And they do provide you in the box with a 6 pin connector. So that works for me, for what I want to do. And they give you a tool, an Allen head tool, to be able to remove it. So I'm going to get and give it a shot and test it out. And it looks like I've got a couple of little Allen head screws, which, if I read the instructions, will tell me what those are for. So, alright. So in order to put the 6 pin in, what I've got to do is open up these protectors here, I think on both sides, and I got to remove one of these. So in the system, the closest one stays in 8 pin, the furthest one out is the 6 pin. So let me take this out. So here we go, it just slides right out. This is the 8 pin that I don't need, and now here is the 6 pin that I'm going to install in its place. Snaps in, and I'm going to get up here and adjust I guess I need to adjust exactly where this is going to go. So the 8-pin needs to slide over, and the 6-pin I think is in the right place. Alright, so I think I can adjust them. Basically these things will slide on this rail. So I'm going to insert the Allen head screws and then adjust it. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to adjust here. You can slide them around. Actually I have the 8-pin really loose. And then up here I've got to adjust it so that they will be able to be inserted, and it looks like they're right on. Alright. So I got it adjusted now. I'm tightening up the Allen screws to keep the connector in the spot that I want it. Now I noticed down here I have two 8-pins, and I guess that's not going to be an issue. Okay, so I have this one adjusted, and it goes right in here and it'll snap in. So I was afraid that because of these blocks I wouldn't be able to use this, but this block conforms exactly to the card, so that's not going to be an issue. So that's good. Alright guys, so finally I got my cables in. Now these are the cables that are going to come through the front of the case. As I showed you before, I had red and black cables for my previous STH10 build, the configuration. It was a red and black theme. And these cables that are red and black are not going to be seen, right? They're all behind the scenes back here. They feed power to the Molex primarily and the SATA power. And so all of that is all cabled up. I've got all this dressed out of the way. There are a lot of cables down here, and they were long because in my previous build the power supply was up top, and the motherboard of course was different, so I had power runs, and I had the Aquero was way down here, so I had Molex power connection runs that went all the way down here, and so it was just a lot of cabling, but this case has the space to place it and put it out of the way. But that's why these cables are so long and they're looped up down here. And in order to protect myself going in the future, in case I reconfigure the system again, these cables that I bought are the longest that you could get. You know, they're the longest option in the configurator from Cable Mods. That's where actually I got these cables from. I did not go with the power cord base material, which is what this is like right here. I went with the vinyl style, and they remind me so much of MDPCX cable. That stuff is fantastic. It's probably the best there is, but I was not going to make my own cables for this build, and this came out really good. This is really good, and plus Cable Mods is relatively quick. I mean, I got these within 2 weeks, and they were actually off a week. So fast turn, nice quality cable, and the coloring that I got here, you can see, is carbon, which is kind of the black, but it's like a carbon, dark carbon gray, then silver, carbon, silver, white. I knew I was going to have a white coolant in one of the reservoirs, so this will, you know, kind of coordinate with that. Then silver and carbon, and so that's what it is. Different patterns on the. These are the cables for the 12 volt EPS cables. So I've got. There's two of those in here, so those are here. And again, you can see that these are quite long, and the power connector is actually right here on this motherboard. So I need to do some cable management, tie them up out of the way. But in the future, if I decide to move this power supply again, or I have a different motherboard configuration layout, I'll have plenty of cable to be able to reach the power and not have to go out and buy a new one. I'll just have to choose between black and red, and and silver and black. So anyway, I think that's it. It's time to install these cables. Well, there we are. Cables from the back side installed and dressed and tied up. It wasn't too bad. I kind of looped them up there by the power supplies, but I was able to slide the connectors in pretty easily. And I have good separation. I have all the main power cables to the power supply going here. And then all of the Molex connections and some of the RGB and all the RGB connections down here out of the way so I can get to all that if I ever troubleshoot anything. And all my other connections are either run here, up around here, or to the RGB switch splitters. So yeah, so I think, and then the only other thing I got hidden back here is the power control for the LEDs going to the blocks and to the reservoirs. So that's what's on this little power strip. So, and it all sits back nice and flat. This is the farthest piece that sticks out, and this is just right behind it, so I can put the panels on and not have any issues. So guys, this part of the video was shot before I got the cables from Cable Mod that you just saw and installed them. But because you hung with me so far for all of this cable management discussion, I thought I'd give you a taste of what the system looks like and my first power on after I did the majority of all of the cabling. But other than that, everything is cabled up. This fan does not have any LED light to it, but everything else should come on. And I did drain out I flushed that rad and that reservoir a few times to get it clear. And again, I haven't decided on what color coolant I'm going to go with, so that has yet to be determined. But I'm dying to turn it on and make sure that everything is working. So when I fire it up, we should have all these fans on. I'm not sure what default state the Aurora motherboard lighting would do. I don't know that I have the Aura software loaded on the system yet. I'll have to do that. And let's see, things to expect. Yeah, so I'm not sure about colors. These blocks should light up like they might look blue on camera, but they're going to be a light color. Like they should be white LEDs in there, white in there. The block should light up. Of course, the RAM should light up. I think the Trident defaults to its RGB kind of mode. I don't have, the only disk I have in here is the main M.2 for my OS. I do have a couple other hard drive and a SSD hooked up just for connecting everything up. I don't think any of those had OSs on them, so hopefully that won't be an issue booting up. I wouldn't think so. So yeah, let's see. I think I got the monitor configured right. Let me get power. Okay, power on the power strip. I know the monitor's got power. Okay, power supply on. That's good. Got some LED around there. All right. Moment of truth. Everything else is cabled up good. Let's hit power. Well, we got lights. LED strip along the bottom. Have a LED strip along the top. Okay. Got a lot going on here. Some lights. I have another LED strip, an addressable one. I do have one I found along the front, and I'll show you guys all that later. But right now, let's see. Let's get me some connection. Oh, I see. All right, we are in, baby. Let's see if it'll come up to the desktop. Yeah, man. Very cool. So the fans are on one of the LSB01 switches, controlled off of one of the ports off the motherboard, and the the LED strip that's on the bottom here and on the top there are also controlled from the other LSB01. The I can't tell. Yeah, it looks like this fan this fan is just reflecting light from other stuff here because this does not have a LED control to it yet. Wow. Alright, that's just default. So let me turn off the lights and give you a look at it in its current default first time powered on mode. Actually looks pretty cool. And if you're a fan of RGB, it's all kind of doing something different. The other thing that I really liked, if you can, I don't know if you can see it, but right now the chrome tube way to the left, that is it feeds the CPU reservoir. That guy has the light shining off of the one strip that I have hidden in this corner. You can't see it from here, but inside this channel here, behind here, there's an addressable LED strip pointing towards that. What I can't tell is if the LED in these blocks are on. I don't think they are. I'm going to have to check that. All right, success. Let me take a look and make sure those LEDs going to the reservoirs are on. I think all the other lighting is maybe washing them out. So, and then I need to get get the BIOS updated. The BIOS I have on here is not the latest and greatest, so I need to do that and make sure my overclock and everything else is doing well. All right, we'll be back. So far, so good. Well guys, if you made it this far, I appreciate it, and I hope you did like this video, and if nothing else, I hope you learned something from it. But if you did please like and favorite, and if you're so inclined, please subscribe to get more of this. I'll be following up with another video shortly with a bunch of more exciting stuff, I think, that you'll like, and I'll see you in the next video. Vlog 6. Thanks for watching.